Oh, say less. I'm back in that bag again. Yeah, yeah. Oh, say less. I'm back in that. Yeah. What you doing? Yeah, yeah. I'm back in that. Hey, where you going? Hey.
Dude, that was a good picture.
That's a good
I haven't
picture.
actually
Nice.
seen it since we took it. Did you see it?
No.
It was
You
the
missed
ones
it?
we took like.
Can we play it again?
It was like,
Yeah, can we
Take
run that one?
it from the top.
Hey, welcome to SPL Waiting Room, the one-stop shop for all things SMITE Pro League. My name is Gormizer, and we're going to be talking about the SPL. I've got Mifflin, I've got Trelly, I've got J-Mac, and I kept my eyes on Mifflin the whole time through that for some reason. But we're going to be walking through all those stuff that you see. J-Mac, point at it. Yeah, there we go. That you see all right there. I couldn't get...
You're still locked on me, man. Look at someone else. Charlie's right
that was what I was talking
there.
about. Okay, fine. Hey, Trelly, what's up?
Hi, how are you?
How are you feeling today?
Great, how are you?
Oh, I don't like that.
Noticing that, like, Miff's been, like, looking older lately, huh?
Oh, I have noticed. He is aging.
You've been getting enough sleep, Mifflin.
The
Guys,
opposite
I'm
of
the
this.
youngest in the room, and it's not close.
And, yeah,
Doesn't look like it.
Shouldn't we be talking about Smite, fellas?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about a few things. The last week, we got to see a lot of really fun things, but of course, coming up, we're going to be talking about like the Warriors. We're going to be talking about some of the roster changes we saw, what they ended up doing. Don't cry, man. We love you.
No, it's cool.
It's
Grown men don't cry.
yeah. I don't think we need that kind of toxic masculinity on this show, Mifflin. I think
It's
we
on
can
me. Sorry. Just
Yeah, come on.
so old and toxic.
grow up. And then, of course, we're going to be looking towards next week. So, first and foremost, this last week we had a lot of like 3-0s. I think we only had the one set that went
Yep.
beyond that. And it didn't look like it was going to go beyond that. And then Mike locked in Giannis support.
Yep.
Then it did go, it went, 2 quick games, and then one kind of trolley long game, and then one where the Gladiators actually look really good.
But then the Dragons won anyways,
Yeah,
which
and
is
then
just
they won
messed up.
It
That is illegal.
Yep. If you're going to attempt the reverse sweep, you better close it out, and the Glads did not.
Everybody else got 3-0s though, so
Yeah.
they tried to balance out the karma as much as they could. The thing at the stood out, and I guess at this point is going to be a talking point, or at least like a little small check-in note every single time, has to be the Warriors, because they made a roster change coming into this, right? You come in and it's like, all right, what do these guys have to offer now that they've got genetics? Is it going to be better? Is it going to be worse? Like, have teams figured them out a little bit more? Are best of fives going to change some of that up? And as it turns out, the answer was just straight up no. They're still really good, and they win 3 sets at kickoff and then 2 sets this weekend. And so, Mifflin, like, this is a team that is still dominant, and it looks like, at least if they can continue this trajectory, are going to continue to be dominant.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the only Warriors coming out with a week like this. Great start to the phase, but I believe it was Genetics that said, hey, we're probably not going to match the win streak record of the previous iteration of the Warriors. I'm thinking it's already starting to look pretty good. I believe we're at 5 games right now in their win streak. But what is most interesting about the Warriors to me is that they have already diversified their win conditions. I would argue they are weaker than the previous iteration of the Warriors right now, currently. But the last version of the Warriors with Jake, we're not going for neutral Gold Furies.
Yeah.
They weren't saying, oh, this guy backed in lane, let's go Gold Fury right now. Or, oh, the mid laner like played a little bit too far out, we poked him out, he's probably going to fall back to his red buff, let's run down Pyromancer. That play style, that win condition for neutral objective did not exist for the previous Warriors. With that said, the previous Warriors didn't need it. They were winning out in every single lane, every single time, consistently, every single time, just running it down, finding their kills, and then maybe they'd grab an objective afterward or go group up like around your Titan doors so you can catch you on the way out. But I think they are currently weaker. We see that reflected in the overall game times for the Warriors. I believe they all go around that 30-minute mark, a little bit longer. But the primary concern for every other team in the league and every fan of any team that isn't the Oni Warriors is that we are still in the growth period.
True.
We're still waiting for Genetics to really sink his little genetics claws into this team and get them steered in the right direction, or however he wants them to play, or adapting to what they want to do, or however it is. We're still looking at the chrysalis stage for the Oni Warriors, and I think that's a very scary thought.
And I think it's interesting because they played, and you can kind of see it there, they only played 6 games. You've got 4 gods coming out from Netroid, 5 coming out from Genetic. Like, they still have all of the variety of play that they seem to have, and even maybe to some of Genetics' chagrin, they've had the whole W mentality that they've had in the past. And so, Trelly, it feels like, you take what was a really great team, and they won because they just roll over you so hard. and you give them a player that is also going to allow you to roll over them so hard in plays, but like Miff said, also then play the actual map and play like Smite. You're not just playing team deathmatch and winning outright. So it feels like they've become this like multifaceted. You can't ban them out. Your macro's just not going to be as good. Your micro's not going to be as good. And it feels like it is, like we always throw out the term like super team. This actually feels like it could be a super team, or at least what that term is like meant to actually embody.
Yeah, I found it interesting that when we got to speak to Genetics about how are you able to crack down on these guys, make them play this, make them group up. He's like, that's a common misconception. I'm not doing anything. He said, if anything, they're telling me what to do. He's like I am shot calling, of course. Late game, I am one of the sole voices we are listening to. But at the moment, I'm just going with the flow, and that's not exactly what I expected. Of course, it's going to take a minute for them to you're the new guy, right? So it's got to take a minute for your voice to carry that much weight for them to gain that respect. But at the very least, I assumed that's why the Only Warriors made that change, right? Because they needed that voice. But I guess they're still just sort of on autopilot, going with what they know. And then eventually we're going to see that mesh. And we assume it's going to be a much higher skill ceiling than they even hit before, which is a scary thought. But I don't know. I just found it interesting that Genetics is like, I have done nothing yet. We are just going through the motions at the moment. Eventually, we will get to that point.
And I remember because I think I asked him in a post game interview. It was right after, it was the one where Pagon is diving the speed buff on the he Raijin dashes in on the enemy speed buff, and it was that. Oh, you're not pulling back any reins here, are you? Or if you are, they're not listening. And so it'll be interesting to see how this team adapts. J-Mac, right now they're on a 5-win streak, right? 3 at the kickoff, 2 at the first week. And I know you had done some math at one point. The real question is, I think the max they could go, assuming we just cut it off at Worlds, right?
Right.
Is still higher than where they could have been or were for phase 1, which was 15 was where they peaked out. So I guess, do you think they can do it?
I think if this is the growth period for these, kind of as defined by Mifflin, I think that they have the capability to do so, but I don't think that we should hold that expectation. I think kind of the big win for them at that time was that in a meta where everybody else is kind of playing a little bit more passively, they're waiting for the late game. That was a team that could mechanic stiff just about anybody in the league, and then they could just run down the map faster than anybody else.
And they did.
Now that the game is speeding up a little bit more, everybody else is starting to get closer to that pace. We're starting to see other teams not necessarily kind of one for one that same style of play, but starting to emulate a little bit more of that early style. We're starting to see a little bit of the old Jade Dragons coming back, even if they are slanting a little bit more late. We can see them play that way. We can see the Gilded Gladiators. We're also able to get a little bit more early. So we're starting to see teams finally match back up to it, and we're no longer in that, well, what's the meta? What's going on here? Yes, we're still trying to define what the meta is right now, but I feel like it's a lot more flexible now than it was before. So teams have a lot more room to play with. We're seeing things like, from the Dragons again, example, Athena being able to go into 4 different roles, which really alters picks and bans. We're still seeing, Dardes eat 7 bans every single time we go into a set for him, but other teams are now starting to catch up. So while the Only Warriors can still get better than what they were before, I think that other teams have finally caught up. We're starting to see everything start to finally settle in for these teams. And now as we move through seasons of celebrations, now that everybody's kind of understanding what's going on the map, we're understanding what the builds are, what gods are working where. Now that we have a lot more flexibility, it allows some of these teams that like to do the wilder stuff, for example, teams that like to run double assassin or assassin mid, assassin ADC, whatever it may be. We're starting to see those teams kind of pop back up and away from more of the kind of bog standard side of meta that we had in the previous phase.
So maybe that's going to change some things for them. I think everybody has kind of, even they've gone on record saying nah, we don't think we're going to be able to do it again. That's not on our minds. This week though, they only have 1 set. So if they are going to continue, I guess, pushing themselves forward, they only have the opportunity to go up to 6. They're playing the Leviathans. So I guess real quick around the table, who do you think's got that set?
Man, it's so hard to say. We've seen the Leviathans bleed already, is a thing.
Yeah.
And they bled out quickly in that second set. I think, and it's not significant odds, I'd say maybe 60-40, but I'll go Warriors.
Jelly?
You think it's that close?
Yeah.
Okay, respect. I definitely say the Warriors.
Hey, give me odds then.
I mean, 80-20.
Sheesh.
I don't know. I just, the Leviathans are still picking up for sure. I think the Only Warriors, where they left off, is higher than the Leviathans' peak for sure. So,
Okay.
J-Mac?
I think I'm just going to use a phrase that you had used in an end call, which is if the Leviathans don't 3-0 the Warriors, this is going Warriors. Because so far, no team in the league has been able to beat the Warriors unless it's been a 3-0, and that was the Ferryman at the end of Masters.
Yeah, that's kind of
Every other team that's gone beyond 3 has still not been able to beat them.
That's kind of a sick call by me.
That was a really good call. You should be proud of that one.
You have something?
Well, I mean, no team's been able to beat them.
No,
Yeah.
beat them unless it was a 3-0. The only time they've lost was a 3-0. Every other team has gone beyond
You don't beat them.
You could like 3-1 them. You could 3-2.
No, but no team has.
Nobody has.
No one has.
They could forfeit.
could.
They might not.
I mean, you
they could.
could.
They could
They
not
Just not show up.
Their only loss, though, has been
I can't
a
tell if you're
3-0 against
not
the
getting it
Ferryman.
or what.
Yeah.
No,
I think he's trying to tell me I'm bad, bro.
No, I'm not trying to tell you
Like,
you're
yeah,
bad.
You said that during an in-call? It was garbage.
No,
Awful.
that's dope. It's just J-Mac with the callback. I'm just like, well, yeah, but like they could queue up today, get the 3-1. You know, like it's
Well, yeah.
possible.
Well, we're just saying, so far, the only loss they've had has been a 3-0.
It's crazy that there's been a team that's only lost once this year. That's all that I'm taking out of this. The next thing up, because Warriors are still good.
Right.
And hey, guys, guess what?
Pull that
I
from,
kind of agree. It's probably the Warriors.
pull back from the recap this past weekend. Warriors are good.
Oh yeah. Damn, man, you got a better memory than me, bro. He's remembering stuff I said better than I remember it. Roster changes came up, and this one we don't even have to we've kind of beat this to death over the last month because it's been a long time since they started. And honestly, and I think Charlie, you had kind of mentioned this with genetics. But it's going to take more than just a week of regular season to actually see where they are. That being said, we're all going to have opinions on it anyway, because that's the whole point. So the first question really is who do you consider who won the roster swaps? And I'm going to exclude the Warriors because they 2-0'd, and that's just too easy of an answer. So out of the other 7 teams, who won, quote unquote, with their roster changes this week?
I've actually got and it's, I'm sorry to ignore the question, but I think I know who lost.
Yeah.
And this is me interpreting the rules myself. I'm not speaking as a member of the administration team or high res, but I think with the Gilded Gladiators picking up 2 members, I believe that does roster lock them through Worlds.
Yes.
They have no more changes available to them. And although the Gilded Gladiators are a significantly better team now, or at least have the potential to be significantly better, this is where I'm going to get a little bit harsh. The changes they made were not impact enough to increase their odds at winning Worlds. And because they are now out of potential changes, for those of you that haven't read the rules in their entirety, you're allowed 2 roster changes now, essentially. So the only Warriors use up their 1, Camelot Kings use up their 1, so they each have 1 left. The Good Gladiators have none left, as I understand it. I do not think that this Gilded Gladiators roster has the potential to win Worlds. Replacing your front line is great. Front line's first contact in every team fight. That's real important in engagements. But what I've seen from them is not frontline diff always, right? That was not the only issue the Gilded Gladiators had. If I had to nail down the Gilded Gladiators right now, I'd say they don't have an X factor. They don't have the guy who's going to eat up 7 bans or the guy who's going to just dominate a game if you put him in a winning position. They don't have that right now. And every other team in the league seems to have at least one guy that's capable 2 out of 7 days of the week at minimum, right? Yeah. So I don't think the Gilded Gladiators have that. And now knowing that this is their roster, no matter what, every other team could change at least a little bit. Gilded Gladiators are going to be the Gilded Gladiators. I think that does put them in the biggest loser position, which is interesting to say because they might also be one of the most improved teams from their roster changes.
For sure.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It's just a blanket upgrade. I think Kana is going to do
just straight up better.
Yep. I mean, obviously having Jake come through, maybe
straight up better.
It's going to take a bit for him to get used to the team, but that is definitely an upgrade as well. I guess it's just the other teams are that far ahead, right? Because I see the same thing. As far as who won, sure, you don't want a roster change forced upon you, but you got to feel like they're okay with this change. It's just, you're right. I don't see their skill ceiling getting to even a top 3 situation.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is they made both of those changes immediately at the same time. You get rid of inbound and you get rid of Scary D. I think if the Gilded Gladiators get rid of one see how it works out. Okay, cool. We're noticing this improvement. Sure, you don't have to, make the next improvement, a week or two later. Get your first 3-4 sets down. You have until I think it was the middle of the phase before the roster lock. If by that point you realize, hey, this still isn't working out, now you can make your final change up, because rosters do lock, I believe it's halfway through the phase, somewhere around like
October
week
11th.
4. Yeah, like week 3, week 4. So you still have a couple of weeks to try with the one new person, and if it's still not going, then you can make another adjustment after that. By making both of them, you've taken what could have effectively been both of your late game shot call potentials, and now your entire frontline synergy that you had has now have to completely reshape itself. And I think also going to the team where you're saying there's no X factor, I think that there's one person that you can really focus out on that team, and that whole team falls apart. You knock down Kierme, I don't see that team standing a chance against the rest. Kierme is the driving factor on that squad. If he is having a bad game, it is reflected across the map, because Stu's not going to get aggressive when he rarely does anyways. Awesome Jake's not going to be able to get away with the antics that he's normally able to, because he doesn't have the farm to get ahead.
I forgot Jake was on that team.
Snoopy.
I just blanked.
Snoopy's not going
to.
I know.
Snoopy
I don't know
tried
why.
getting really aggressive, and it worked out pretty well for him in Game 4 and for the first half of Game 5 in their set against the Dragons. But then you get to late game, and now you got to have somebody to kind of reel him back. Say, hey, you can't be thunder crashing into the middle of 5 people now at their Phoenix when there's a Freya sitting by and no beads, no Aegis. If you can shut down Kierme on that team, it makes your job a whole lot easier against them. But I think you're right to say that there's nobody you can look to be that one winning factor at any given time. There's no 2 people on that team that will carry it through. It's one guy right now, and they need to diversify that a bit more as the season goes.
You know what? That wasn't, like you said when you started, it wasn't exactly the thing I asked, but I actually think I like that more than the thing I said.
I'm just a big old ball of negativity, man. It's all I got to share.
I was gonna say maybe you're just like, maybe I'd have you write the waiting room. Next week. Like, maybe I'm just like, hey, yo, Myth, is this good? So realistically, I think like this next week and probably the week after, right? Week 3 is more or less when I expect to see the ground settled. Like, you've had time for scrims, you've played a few sets at that point, like minimum 3, so you've like got all that experience, maybe figured some more things out, and we'll see where teams go and where they end up doing with it. Next week though, I think we have a lot of very fun matches. I chose 3 that I think are like the, hey, you should watch these, because I think they're going to be pretty competitive, or at least storyline wise they're going to be fun to see how they end up. Levi's and Hounds, which I believe is tomorrow, is one that I think is going to be just really fun to watch. I think the Hounds, even though they didn't win their set, they were against the Warriors, so like that doesn't mean
and they
anything
looked
to me.
really good.
Yeah,
I was very impressed by the Hounds in the Warriors set, specifically Neilma. I thought dude was going to be washed up. Completely honestly, the tail end of his career, he was not playing very impressively, so I think Twilight at a good time. That break was clearly very good for him as well, though, because he came back that Athena game.
If he didn't get accent diffed, maybe we have a different option there.
Maybe.
Oh, man.
I forgot
Still one of the funniest tweets that's been put out.
For those of you that don't know, Neilma, Athena ulted. He heard an English
British
voice
guy
in his ear that said, "Can I get an Athena ult of some sort?"
Is that okay?
And he
Are you allowed
just
to do that?
And he cut over. He ulted a Ducky. Ducky said, "Why are you in my lane?" And Coast's like, "Where's my Athena?" Goes in, dies. And he said, "I heard a British accent and I went to the wrong Brit. My bad."
So
That's
funny.
crazy.
That is crazy. Poor Neil. The good news is
Poor
he's got-
Coast. You went
Yeah, you're right.
got soloed off
This is a
that.
poor Coast moment.
Little protections. Can I have some more?
A little bit of movement speed, please.
Well, they get to-
Oh, we're canceled. We're canceled.
Well, that's the last episode of SBL Waiting Room, guys. It's been great knowing you. And we'll see you eventually. Man, wait, no, if we get canceled, the SBL's gone. 'Cause we're gonna.
Well, we're replaceable.
Oh, yeah,
It's the
actually,
Bobby
good
and
point.
Frog
you got
show
Bob-
now.
yeah, you got Bobby and Frog.
Bobby
in a
Frog.
character.
By the way, we won the roster change, just to
Yeah.
be clear. You were asking who won. It was us. We got Bobby.
Okay.
Worked
Yeah,
out.
you're right.
Just right over.
If you had just said that.
I'm just saying, because, guys, he got dropped from the Glads.
Yeah.
Okay? That's my whole point.
Look, Frog was an SPL before.
That's my whole point. Bobby got dropped for us to pick him up, so we won the
He
roster
changed
change.
rosters.
Yeah.
Frog was never on a
Damn,
roster.
if
We
he had
just
said
picked
that,
him
like,
up.
10
I guess we
minutes
brought
ago,
him up from
we
the
brought him up from the
SEC.
SEC.
Okay.
He got a bit.
So that counts too. We brought Frog up, and then we stole Bobby
Frog
from
got the
Glads.
This
bigger
dude had said
promotion.
this 10 minutes ago when I asked the question, though. That would have been sick.
Well, I was sitting on it. I was waiting.
He was waiting
Let
for
it
that
fester.
I was waiting.
I also think, well, actually, Hounds are on here twice, so I'll because I think they're going to look good against Levi's, and I think that one's one to watch, because, like, Panda Cat's back. They definitely were good against Dragons. Ferryman had a really good game until they lost it and didn't all of a sudden. Ferryman are going to be playing the Hounds as well, and that one was just, like, the matchup in Phase 1. It feels like those dudes just kept finding each other no matter how it worked out. Like with the tiebreaker, they ended up against each other in like the playoffs and the like play in, and it's just like, oh my god, win 5 games. That one's gonna be really fun to watch, hopefully. And then Ravens and Dragons, I think, is gonna be real fun to watch.
Gotta watch every Ravens game from now on.
Well,
You have to watch all of them
With Twitter open.
with Twitter open. And 2 Twitters in particular. That's Derpy and Barra.
he said he was done
those
with
up.
his,
Yeah, I think both of them said
He's
they are done.
He might
Derpy's
be.
probably
they
not.
might be
Maybe
done.
not.
Derpy is certainly not done, but Barra might say he's done.
yeah, we'll find.
Zap goes 0-10. We're gonna hear about it.
Oh, for
okay?
sure. And then the match of the week actually is that Ferryman's Hounds. I didn't realize that I had it listed here twice. So Ravens Dragons will be fun to watch, but like you said, maybe more for the Twitter game and also just to see what happens. And real quick, because I think we're butting up against the edge here. We're just going to go around real quick predictions because Ferryman and Hounds, they've met several times this year. The last time they played each other, I think they went 5. We're going to go reverse order since you started last time. J-Mac, Ferryman or Hounds?
I'm going to go Ferryman probably 3-0 in this one.
Ferryman!
Do you have a number?
No.
Okay.
Hounds in 5.
Hounds in 5. I'm gonna give it. You know what? I like Hounds in 5. That sounds good to me. Watch that set. I think it's on Sunday.
That's got to be a 40 times ROI right there. If we
Yeah,
hit
right.
That.
If we
hit that play, we're looking
so
good.
many channel points, dude. But that's gonna do it for SBL Waiting Room, at least here for week 1. So thank you to the 3 of you for hanging out with me, and thank you to all of you who have been watching. And we'll see you this week in the SBL.